Hi there, welcome to my class. My name is Viktor Kalvachev, and I'm looking forward to sharing my knowledge and experience with you. This class is for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're new at drawing or you're a highly skilled artist who I probably already follow on Instagram. I developed this class after practicing and perfecting different segments of it all over the world, teaching drawing in Paris, Berkeley, LA, Tel Aviv, Sevilla, and many other places. Through testing different techniques and observing my students, I developed a series of exercises to help you advance very quickly and make giant leaps in your artistic development. When you finish this class, your rendering will be greatly improved, the structure and proportions of your figure drawings will be rock solid, and you'll never run out of ideas for fresh character designs. I decided to break down this class into the following lessons. Crosshatching, where you'll learn the fundamentals of crosshatching rendering and how to control your tool so it becomes a true physical extension of your artistic intentions. Shapes. We'll use the newly acquired technique to quickly define shapes through bold choices of stroke directions while drawing life models. Values. We'll practice and learn techniques for achieving different values and then practice them drawing models in dynamic poses. Light and shadow. During this lesson, you will broaden your understanding of light and shadow and practice it using the techniques from the first 3 lessons. Body basics. You'll learn about 3 essential things when drawing people that are overlooked way too often. Proportions and how to measure them, structure or how to never draw a broken body again, and understanding the center of gravity so your figures don't fall. In perspective. We'll cover perspective and foreshortening of the human body through a series of exercises drawing different models. This will pave the way for the next couple of lessons. Body details, part 1. You'll build a solid understanding of the torso and arms, but don't worry, no Latin names, it'll be fun. Body details, part 2. We'll continue with the legs and hands. And finally, observation. In this final lesson, I will give many tips and tricks on how to draw the human head. You'll also learn a facial recollection system and master the ability to remember and recreate faces that you've only glimpsed for a few seconds. Something that's been very useful to me, and I believe you'll love it too. Our first lesson is about the crosshatching technique. There's no point in knowing theory of light, values, anatomy, and perspective if you can't actually draw it. Before anything else, let's just have a few words about paper. I tried doing exactly the same drawing using the same pencil on 6 different papers, numbered from 1 to 6. The first one is the most textured paper, while the last one is the smoothest. I used single thin lines, harsh outlines, fine hatching, big fat graphite, and smudging to show the different results each paper provides. In these close-ups, what becomes obvious is that the smoother the paper, the more precise the line work appears. In the next batch of close-ups, we see how using a big flat graphite brings the paper's texture forward and gives it a prominent role in our drawing. When the paper is smooth, the graphite becomes just a value, while the textured paper makes it a lot more than that. In the last series of close-ups, I experimented with the smudge tool to show how it can make an even value no matter how rough the paper is. Here's a quick graph to explain what actually happens. The graphite slides on the surface and only hits the top surface of the paper, leaving large white areas depending on the texture type. When doing the same stroke on smooth paper, since the texture is minimal, the graphite covers almost all the surface, leaving tiny white spaces. The lesson here is, the more textured the paper, the more character you will add to your expressive lines. The smoother it is, the more control you'll have over details. But don't worry, there's always a way to add details to a heavily textured paper. A word about erasers. If you use the rubber eraser, it will strip down or smudge your drawing, especially if you've put a lot of graphite in that area. This one is good when you really want to clean up a specific area and leave no trace of the drawing. I personally prefer the kneaded eraser, which feels like dough and you can mold it in whatever shape you need, from pointy little detail to lines to big flat areas to lift graphite off the paper. The best part about it is that if you want to make a whole area lighter, you simply tap on it gently and it will start lifting the graphite from the top level down. I use this more than anything else. I actually decided to separate the tools that I use based on the purpose that I use them for. basically when I draw, I'm thinking about light sketch, I'm thinking about details, adding tones, or throwing some expressive lines, or there's an area that I need to fill. And then I also love to play with blurring some areas or adding contrast later to them or somewhere else. So for this little demo, I'll start with a mechanical 0.3 HB. I'm doing this just very simple head, and you can see that I'm pressing very, very lightly with the intention to erase this if I need to. Also, I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing, so I'm just exploring shapes, marking shadows, etc., just throwing some lights to figure out what it is that I want to do. Same thing can be done with the wooden pencils. This is an HB in this case. This is what I'm looking for, finding a little more expressive lines or using the flat side of the pencil. Sometimes I work with very thin color pencils, red or blue or green sometimes. This adds a little more character to my drawings, but the caveat is if you press harder, it's more difficult to erase, and sometimes it just stays on. I would go as far as 2B sometimes if I want to block areas in my light sketch, especially when I know that this is going to be really dark and I'm blocking big shadows. I use this rubber eraser, I call it the nuclear one, because it just takes away everything and then wipes it out. Careful with your paper. If your paper can't take it, then use a kneaded rubber eraser like this one. Like I'm right now making a flat surface, and by tapping it a few times I make sure that it's flat and nice to take areas evenly and not just create some weird white spots. As you see, the light sketch is almost gone. I also like the mechanical erasers because they're easy to keep clean and you're certain to find a sharp edge when you need it. I recently discovered a very thin one and I'm having a lot of fun with it, just sort of drawing over my pencils by erasing them with very thin lines. You can even do cross-hatching if you want. So it's just a fun little thing. We'll continue with the same drawing, and I'm starting with Mech 03 HB. I'm rather careful on how I'm placing details, but I'm usually using this when I want very thin lines, very gentle lines. I'm going to switch to one of my favorite pencils. What I like it so much is because if you use it harshly, you develop a flat surface and suddenly it becomes a lot fatter than 0.9. But the moment you rotate it, it's still super sharp and you can get a very thin line. The thing is though, if you press with that one, it'll be definitely difficult to erase and it might stay in your drawing. Continuing with a wooden HB. Apparently this is a man. When I hold it in the back, it's still precise, but I'm able to super gently add value and tiny little details just with the edge of it. I highly recommend the electric pencil sharpeners. Not only they sharpen the pencil, but it is incredibly satisfying. My goal when adding tone is to preserve the drawing underneath and simply add some value with either very, very fine strokes or just a flat tone without bringing any more character. The flat tone is most easily added using just a wooden pencil or a woodless pencil due to the large surface. I usually hold it from the end so I get a really nice low angle and can cover a larger area. Once all the graphite is being distributed where I want it, but you can still see the strokes, you could use the smudge tool and blend it all together. You just need to practice it a little bit, and you'll learn how to avoid starting a line from a very white spot and leaving a dark dent accidentally. It just comes with practice, but it's very satisfying. It's a really, really nice blender.